Good evening. I'm Chris Matthews in Washington. Leading off tonight, dueling banjos. Look who's challenging Sarah Palin as media darling and chief attention grabber on the Republican right, Michele Bachmann. Palin may have matched Bachmann last night, however, with her own full moon attack on President Obama's State of the Union. This isn't a battle of SAT scores, ladies and gentlemen, but the stronger President Obama gets, the less valuable the GOP nomination for president might be getting, and the more likely Republicans could go rogue and pick a candidate from their wild side, giving up smart for spark. At some point, it's all about who excites an audience. Our top story tonight, Palin versus Bachmann. Start with Michele Bachmann and Sarah Palin. Josh Marshall, founder and editor of Talking Points Memo, and Melinda Henneberger, editor-in-chief of PoliticsDaily.com. You know, on Greta Van Susteren last night, let's take a look at Sarah Palin. She must have saved this for Fox in this interview. They're talking about the Sputnik moment that President Obama talked about, which everybody remembers, which was, if not remembers, heard about, where the United States got off its butt when we realized the Soviets had gotten out there with the first satellite. Here's her answer.
Governor, last night there was a lot of discussion about the Sputnik moment that the president talked about. Do you agree with them? Do you feel is this our moment?
That was another one of those WTF moments, that when he has so often repeated this Sputnik moment that he would aspire Americans to celebrate. And he needs to remember that what happened back then with the former communist USSR and their victory in that race to space, yeah, they won, but they also incurred so much debt at the time that it resulted in the inevitable collapse of the Soviet Union.
Well, the Soviet Union, of course, went down, of course, after the failure of the attempted coup out there, and Yeltsin stood up against them, standing on the tanks, one of the most heroic moments in history, standing up against the Red Army. That was in '91 in August. Of course, Sputnik was in 1957. So the connection here, let me go to Melinda, the connection between the space race, which began, of course, with Sputnik overtaking our satellite efforts, and then we, of course, killing them in the space race. Why would Sarah Palin, who believes in American exceptionalism, say we lost the space race when everybody on planet Earth knows we got to the moon first, breaking all human history by going to another world, and the Soviets gave up. They gave up. They said, Uncle, we can't do what you guys are doing. And then 40-some years later, they of course, went bottom up economically. What is she talking about? And who's writing this garbage for her? Who puts it in her head?
But, Chris,
let's start with her. No, don't change the subject. Who's putting this stuff in Sarah Palin's head?
I don't think there's any good evidence that Sarah Palin has much of a team. I think she has yes people, and she doesn't have professionals working for her. But anything Barack Obama says, of course, she's going to say is absolutely the opposite of reality. But the thing that I was very offended hearing her talk about the WTF moment.
Well, that's kind of high school.
That's so or seventh grade. That's so disrespectful of the office that I don't think she's even serious about wanting to run for the presidency. I think that if she were, she wouldn't be speaking in a way that really does not make her look like a pro. Well, to those who,
I'm a little slow on this, Melinda. I know it's like people say BTW. A friend of mine always says, by the way, and some people say, oh my God, OMG, and of course, what the? We're used to that other word. But you're right. Here's a woman running for president, perhaps, talking like this. Josh, what do you make of this? Well, I don't know whether you were offended by her lingo. I think it's childish and playing to the sort of the peanut gallery with this kind of talk, not really playing it like you're really running for president, talking about this kind of stuff. But I'm offended by the absolute, seems to be weird sense of American history we're getting from these people like her and Bachmann. The other night, Bachmann was talking about how slavery was ended by the founding fathers. We didn't have to have a civil war or any of the fights that were on in the U.S. Congress all through the early 19th century with the compromises and Henry Clay and all that. None of it ever happened. And now we lost the space race to the Soviets and that bankrupted them. Don't they have some floor of knowledge they have to have for these people on the right to think of them as presidential material? Josh. So here we are again, and it's wacky time on the right. Palin's out there with her off-the-wall history of the space race in which the Ruskies beat us to the moon. You'd think the full mooners would get that one right. Mush, you Ruskies. Dear Sarah, I thought you believed in American exceptionalism. We won that race, remember? One giant step for mankind. Where was your head at? Sorry, sore subject. As for her rival from Fargo country, Michele Bachmann, she believes slavery got dumped by those guys who wrote the Constitution. Why don't you read it, Congresswoman? Bring back the good old days? It says African Americans were 3/5 people back then. How's that for original intent, Justice Scalia? And